All right, welcome to another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. And as always, I have an amazing warrior guest for us, Pattie Craumer. And I'll come back to her in just a second. But if you haven't been with us before or you forgot, let me tell you why you're here. Success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that are all part of making us who we are up to this point and provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. And in each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life, entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, coaches, any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause. They have unique value and a vision that goes generations into the future. And today's guest is no exception. Pattie Craumer is an awesome warrior, and her 25 plus year warrior journey began as a leader in the information industry. She is a mother, a business professional, educator, researcher, and so much more. Recently relocating from Montana to the East Coast, that's probably an interesting story in and of itself, to be closer to her children. She is embarking on a new chapter of her warrior journey, attracting new zombies as she moves forward. Throughout her years, she has been a strong advocate for women, well-being, and for living the uniqueness each of us is born with. Recognizing that our stories shape our lives, Pattie has embraced her unique value in growing ideas, building communities, and serving warriors of all types through her Mosaic Effect, which is approach and provides some unique value in focusing on shared interests, positivity, and making an impact. Pattie believes that every part of our life makes us who we are. We're definitely aligned there, creating our own unique mosaic that we can use, all of us together, to create a richer and happier world. Pattie Craumer, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. How are you today?
Aw, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. It's really fun to spend some time with you and to chat. This is the good stuff of life.
So, what you said, I said in the introduction, you're on the East Coast. So, what part of the that part of the United States are you in now?
I live in Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania.
Central Pennsylvania. I think you told me that before, but I was drawing a blank. So Central Pennsylvania. So what's that been like, kind of from Montana to Central Pennsylvania? Has it been interesting, or is that something we're going to talk about more in the story? Or uh,
We can talk about it whenever we want, but it's a big part of my life
yeah.
because I grew up in Pennsylvania, but I've moved around a lot and I ended up meeting men. Of course, the opposite sex has an impact on our lives often. So I first moved to Utah and then I moved to Montana. And I eventually left Montana to come back east after my dad needed some help and
Mhm.
I wanted some different things from with my kids. And of course, marriages don't always last like you think they will, and that was one that didn't. So I left Montana after almost 20 years. So I spent a long time in that western landscape.
Wow. So I assume it's a little colder there. Have you guys had? I mean, I'm in Dallas, and today it's in the 50s or whatever, but they're talking about single digit temperatures here coming sometime next week. Have they already hit you already, or?
Oh, this is a funny question, especially just off the heels of the Montana word, because I was just looking up where I used to live, Great Falls, and the temperature this week is going to be minus 33 at night. That's 33 Fahrenheit, not centigrade, and minus 13 during the day and windy. I lived a lot of years in that kind of climate where it comes and goes like that. So cold you think you can't live, and then and it just goes by, and you better not have drafty windows.
Yeah, I actually have. I think we talked about this. I have some perspective on that. Living in Michigan for 18 years.
Oof.
It's not quite Montana because we do have lake effect snow, but we also have lake effect moderation, but it's still, I've had 50-degree below zero uh, years or times, not years, but times during the year while I lived there, none of which I would love to repeat. But anyway, well, we could talk about probably a lot of differences in weather, but I can't wait to get into your story. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take a little quick break. We'll hear a little of our theme song for the audio audience. It's Not the Getting There by Ricky Jean Wright. And we'll be back with Pattie Craumer to hear her story on Warrior versus Zombie. All right, we are back. And Pattie, I'm not sure I'm coveting your location, but I'm glad you're with your kids. I can relate to that with all my kids and grandkids. So I can surely appreciate you moving to get close to both your parents or kids and that kind of thing. So anyway, so tell me, how did you get from where you started, and you get to pick where that is, to where you are today?
Yeah, so isn't this one of the most interesting conversations for everyone because nobody has the same route and nobody has in any way a similar experience, even if it sounds like we do.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I grew up in Pennsylvania and like a lot of young people, did the college thing, but didn't exactly know how I was going to land a career. I ended up going into the information industry, which you mentioned in my overview. And, the information industry that I entered was pre internet. And people are probably saying, what even is that? Um, but I ended up getting an information science degree and I marketed information services to anyone who needed information and research done. And they had to use things called databases, which is sort of like one of these zombie kinds of things today. And I just had a blast in my career. I loved it, worked for an international company and opened up their North American offices and traveled all over places. And it was a really impactful chapter in my life because uh, it kept me a young and active professional for many, many years without any other interest in doing things but traveling and growing my career and having fun meeting people everywhere. Um, so it was a big deal. I eventually did go back to grad school and got an MBA in Arizona and got married, had a child, and the story is long and complicated. That chapter we won't go into right here. Um, but I've just done a lot of different things in my life, and I have not followed the straight and narrow. Things come up, I say yes, I do them. Sometimes they're hard and challenging, and then I learn lessons, and then I keep going. So I've moved a bunch of places and done different things from information over time.
So you've hit on a few things, and one of the things in this the audience expects to hear about is in this segment of the story is we all, as I say in the introduction, have those zombies in our life, in our mind, in our the world around us. That's just life is challenge and support. Obviously, the zombie and the warrior is a metaphor. So, but tell me, along that path, there, we kind of glossed over a few. Um, I mean, I gathered some relationship challenges. I picked up some zombies in the
A little zombie-ish.
yeah, in the career transition movement. Tell me what, in terms of moving out of what kind of drove some of the challenges that you or zombies you experienced in any of the career things? Anything stick out to you there?
Yes, of course. So I have been married 2 times, and in each of those situations, I learned a lot, and I'm grateful for those moments, and I had a child from one each of those relationships. It was quite unusual living in Utah. It was the first time I really felt like a minority, due to the religious,
Mhm. Yeah,
emphasis
the
of
Mormon
the
influence
community.
there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was something else. So I weathered that, and then I moved to Montana with my first husband, who was also in the librarian field, but he had his own agenda. So he left and I followed, and then I took a job in Boston and he chose not to follow. So I went back to Montana, and Montana is a glorified place of
Hmm.
beauty and vastness and openness, and it has this mystique.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of people love living there, so I wouldn't say it's a bad place to live, but for me, having grown up in the East and liking a fast-paced, dynamic environment, if the airport needs to be near me, it needs to be near me. I need to be able to go places. I need to be able to go to bookstores. I need to have, shows and events. I need to have lots of people that are different from me to interact with, and Montana is not that.
Right.
It was a real challenge for me to live there, and feel very much out of place all the time. I used to say the vast plains of eastern Montana were sweeping through me and taking my soul,
Oh, wow.
and that's extreme, and I
Mhm.
learned a lot from that, but when I moved back east, parts of me were left in the West because that happens too, and parts of me were fulfilled, when I moved back. So that's also place
Yeah.
is significant to who we are.
Well, it's interesting. I hadn't you triggered a thought because I actually after I retired, I took a role for a while, not for money per se, but as the executive pastor of a church and was doing things, and then some things occurred there, and I interviewed for another executive pastor position in a church in Bozeman, Montana,
Oh,
and you talk about, yeah, and I can totally relate to I mean, living in the Dallas metroplex and traveling all over the world, and all the things you talked about. Those things are important. I mean, how you're, not only who you surround yourself with, but the geography that you're in, the environment, being aware of its impact. You said it was sweeping through your soul, or sweeping your soul away, or
yeah.
exactly, I don't know exactly what you said there, but it was pretty profound in terms of, yeah, that your geography, what you surround yourself with. Some things you can't control, but a lot you can. Obviously you could move back, so that's an interesting zombie that people encounter. You get
Mhm.
through following careers, following people, um, your spouse, family, whatever. Those circumstances can lead us to a place where all of a sudden, if we re-engage our frontal lobe and kind of get out of the zombie mode of just going through making the same decisions you made the day before today and not thinking about it
Yeah.
in an intellectual way, which I think that's 95% of our thoughts fall into that category, right? So it's
Yes.
only 5%, but it sounds like you did do some reflection. You did overcome some of that zombie by saying, hey, this is sucking the life out of me, or this is not serving me the way it needs to. So I think that's kind of brilliant. What else? What other kinds of challenges, I call them zombies again, have you feel like you've overcome on the journey to today?
I think this is something a lot of your listeners will relate to, being a single parent.
Mm,
It's very common, and it it's doable, and it isn't always easy. And one of the areas that I would like to make more of an impact in than I have is really I have a big heart for single moms and their
mm,
struggles and the unexposed pain that single moms have. We go through life, we do the things, we buck it up, we get strong, we're the warriors, and yet sometimes it becomes more of us than we really want it to be. So I'm a good warrior, but sometimes I want to be, I want to be a little bit of a softie. Not only the a zombie, but a little bit softy. And sometimes it just doesn't fit. I got to be the got to be the warrior. So that would be another chapter that I would say has been significant
Mhm.
for me for the last decade being a single parent.
Well, I can relate to that. I got to do that for a few years as a single dad. So it's not just moms, but I do
Mm,
have an appreciation for having to play both of those roles, having to provide the leadership and the support, and not necessarily you got to look out for, you got to find other uh, support around you to help you move forward, because warriors are just warriors. I mean, I actually, my my wife was uh, we retired her with 5 kids out of the
mm,
corporate world after the youngest turned, I mean, until that time, until he turned 18 months, and then all of a sudden it said, what are we doing? This is doesn't, you know didn't make sense financially, didn't make, there was just
mm.
so many things. um but that job, and I said, that's a much harder, the parent part, that's a much harder job. So I can, stay in there and do the travel and the business stuff and whatever. But yeah, no, I have total appreciation, and I realize, now too, in retrospect, working with a lot of clients, probably as you have, especially since you're supporting women and you have that passion, right? Is that
Mm.
that you can be a single mom without a spouse, or you can be a single mom with a spouse, right? I mean,
Oh,
it's really,
touche.
in fact, the latter can sometimes be harder than the former, right? Because it's harder to run a race with a 50-pound pack on.
Mm.
So anyway, so I can appreciate that. Well, that is, and there's a lot of listeners on this podcast that are, carrying that load, and they love it, but it's a different level of challenge, or zombie to get through. Anything else? I mean, you mentioned your father, some of those kinds of things. Again, the transit. By the way, just so you know, just so you don't feel really old, I'm older, and
We'll
I found
discuss later.
myself in the IT space, as we called it back then, or actually data processing, if you can remember back that far, um, in the corporate world, before there was even an IBM PC. I mean, before, you know, internet, before anything. So yeah, today's kids, they, or young people, younger than I am, hear technology, IT, they think in websites and HTML and you name it, AI and all this stuff, and cell phones and mobile and right. And so that's a big deal. Moving forward, when you have that kind of foundation to like where to today, and I know kind of a little bit about what you're wanting to do today, but how did that all unwind, or what kind of zombies did you overcome in that transition from that information, which sounded like you loved it from what you said, but what was that like?
Mm. It's also a really good question. When I moved to Montana, one of the things that happened was I didn't have access to my career work because people were not as much we were working remotely. I did
Mhm.
happen to have a remote chapter with the Boston job, but since people weren't working remotely, I had an MBA, I had an information degree, I was a French undergrad. It's like I am a zombie in Montana, seriously, zombie. So I reinvented myself. I made a connection with a woman who was talking about toxins in our body products and our food. And this was also 20 years ago. So it was not the theme of the day then.
Mhm.
But thinking about the theme of me, I just find these things that are not the theme of the day and run into them. So I led the way in my town in Montana for new conversations around toxin free living, getting bad ingredients out of your kitchen, and products off your baby's skin and things like that. And so I had a really fascinating health chapter,
Mm,
business related
sure.
when I lived there, and I'm grateful for that. It
Well, the
forced me
good
to do
news, yeah, the good
self-care.
news, yeah, the good news is like in Montana, there's still, even though there's a lot less people there, as I found out, than there is here in Dallas and on the where you're at now on the East Coast. Health is still a big thing, right? I mean, and wellness is important. And again, of the vintage that I am, as you point out, that wasn't a big part of the conversation. I mean, thinking about the the things that are killing us that we don't even realize through the toxins in processed foods or the air we breathe or the water we drink or don't drink, and the other. So yeah, there's so much there. As I often say, I went on my own wellness journey starting in 2017 when I decided, lost 70 pounds, got off of all medications,
Wow.
myself. And it was all about, um, I was taking all these medications, and it was like when I started realizing things, I said, it's not the things that I don't know that were killing me. It's the things that I thought I knew that absolutely weren't true. And
Yeah.
that's one of my mantras today for anybody. There's no magic bullets. There's no silver pill. Magic pills or whatever. We all want to look for something, but a lot of it is just in how we live our lives, and getting those zombies out of our head is can be a major move forward for anybody. So brilliant. I love it. I can totally relate. Are we getting close to the day? Because if we are, I think we're going to take a quick break here. Is there anything else that
Absolutely.
we should cover in your story, or you want to jump in?
Oh,
I know most warriors are like, okay, we're not, what happened in the past is the past. Let's move forward. And so, you ready to talk about today?
I'm ready to talk about
Okay.
today. Yes, you
Well,
bet.
then let's do this. For our audio audience, we're going to take another quick break. We're going to hear a little more of our theme song from Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be right back with Pattie Craumer, and we'll hear about why she's doing what she's doing today on Warrior versus Zombie. All right, Pattie. Well, I'm fascinated, and again, it's always an amazing thing to me on this BeeKonnected platform. You have this AI that connects
Mhm.
people and all this other kind of cool stuff, but it's incredible to me the how much alignment that it recommends the people that come into my sphere through this platform. So the conversations are so easy. Doing this podcast with people that I are warriors on this platform, it's just been it's so fascinating every time I have it. So tell me, why are you doing what you're doing today, and give us a little understanding of what that looks like.
All right. I'm going to start out by this. No matter who we are, if we sat down with anyone in the world, we would find common ground. We're finding common ground. You're having ahas. I'm having ahas. We don't have time to share them in this
Sure.
podcast, but the beauty of that common ground and as well as the unique stories we have is really the beginning of my story of the Mosaic Effect. And I also became certified as a life coach a number of years ago. And that led me into thinking about how I bring my perspective to the world. So, my perspective is through this concept of the Mosaic Effect that we have millions of little pieces that make up the picture of our lives and who we are. And, just being a little creative with it, some of the pieces are shiny and great and we love them, and the others we want to completely chink out of the picture. We want to throw them away. We think they're not right, but the beauty is we can't not have them because they make us who we are. And so one of my missions is to help a person to reveal the depths of who they are from all those pieces and accept them and love them and then live them. Um, live who they really are, because that's who we all need. And so that's a mission that I have, is help a person to really love who they are and see that mosaic, which is the beautiful life that they have to give.
Well, I absolutely love that, and you probably picked up from the introduction of the podcast that all these zombies, the things in our lives, um, they are they do make us who we are, and that's exact that mosaic as you describe it is no piece is unnecessary. And in
Yeah.
fact, sometimes the things that in my life, I mean, again, I look back and a lot of things you don't see until you look in retrospect, right? To see. And some of the things that at the time seemed like the worst things that ever happened to me have become such a powerful foundation for my path forward that it's hard. Losing $8 million, you'd say that is a big zombie, right? But you know what? I wouldn't trade it what happened since that time for twice that, or for 10 times that. Because again, those challenges, those zombies, the overcoming, and it's a journey every day, just like the theme song says.
Yeah.
Uh, those things make us who we are. They build us, they make us stronger. That's the thing. There's no failure unless you quit. So warriors don't quit. Zombies, you try to cover them up, but they're still there, right? That mind, that what I call the zombie mind. I just don't
Mm.
get into the technical parts. That's not my forte, although I've studied a lot of those guys. Um, it's fascinating to think about just embracing those, which I hear you saying in the
Mm.
mosaic effect, right? That's powerful. That's can be life changing if you realize that life is about challenge and support. You
Yep.
can't have health without both, right? You have to
Yes.
a child has to fall before it learns to walk. Even at the cellular level, when we tried to escape from the pandemic, or the what I call the zombie virus, if we try
Mhm.
to escape from that and protect ourselves and put us in a bubble, guess what? It comes back with a vengeance because your body isn't able to gear up. I mean, again, this is not medical advice. This is science. It's right down
Yes.
to that level, right? So tell me more. I love this. As you look at the mosaic effect, what you're doing, um, what kinds of things have you found in kind of your journey that have become most valuable as you move forward in this new role?
One of the things about the mosaic effect that I think about is, okay, so you and I are older rather than younger.
Mm,
We'll leave it
sure.
at that. So I have a lot of those chapters. I have a lot of those pieces. I have stories. I have more stories than I had when I was 30.
Mhm.
And at the same time, a 30-year-old has so many stories. No matter what their age, we've all lived through so many things. And so part of my desire is to not just have the perspective of an older person who has lived through lots of things, but to help younger people to be inspired by their own journey, to
Mm,
own all those pieces and to be able to have their quote unquote mosaic effect a little bit earlier, by not that we're not still going to be chunked in with challenges and changes, but to say, I'm inspired by who I am. I have the energy to keep living the way I am and to making the impact that I'm going to make. And if I wouldn't have had all these chapters, me myself, I wouldn't have been able to have as much empathy for, say, going through the years of helping my dad until he passed away. I wouldn't have the empathy for that. Well,
sure.
somebody who's younger still has empathy for whatever happened in their storyline. So, helping people to find that common ground, and to embrace their story is honestly a little exciting for me. I feel like this is part of what I'm supposed to do.
Well,
It's
I love it because that's what warriors do. You can listen to all 126 previous episodes, and you're going to hear it. I hear it every week. Is where we learn things, and I don't care how. It's not a matter. You don't have to be old. You don't have to be young. We all have a story, and we all have a story to tell. Key is don't keep that story within inside you. We all have a story, and that's part of why I do this podcast. But the thing is, uh, don't look for necessarily focus on something to blame, or an excuse, a
Mm,
victim scenario. Learn from it. um,
mm,
Grow with it. There's no failure, whether you're making a sales call, or you have to have a starter spouse or whatever. There doesn't matter, to get to figure things out, right? It doesn't matter.
yes,
I mean, and I've had a
it
couple of those
doesn't.
myself, so I mean, I can relate. I mean, but the thing is, I can relate not only in my own journey. And the thing I love about what you're saying too, when you talk about younger, is I have two primary targets for people that I know I can add value to. And one is people who maybe have as much or a lot of journey behind them, and they're looking
Mhm,
to, okay, I've now realized this is not serving me or going to serve me going forward. And the other part of it is my 5 millennial children and the lives that they're going through and their demographic,
mhm,
realizing that, okay, don't do what I did, but embrace what's happening to you and has happened to you, and realize that that's all part of continuing on this journey. And it's not about, if you just think everything's going to be, you know, rainbows and unicorns, then you're living in a fantasy. And if all you see is, hey, I can't get over this, then you're depressed. And so let's find the whole picture, right? I love
mm,
it. I love it. So what
definitely.
else? If anything, let me ask you this, because this is kind of a signature question here that I always ask my clients and my podcast guests and anybody, is, if anything were possible, and by the way, everything is possible, what kind of impact are you hoping to have with the whole focus that you have now on the Mosaic Effect, serving the folks that you're trying to serve? What would that look like?
Mm, that's a really good question, and I have to say I love the word possibilities. I had
Mm.
a Facebook group for a little while called Making Possibilities Real, because anything that you can think, you can make real.
Mhm.
And so I think for my impact, for the Mosaic Effect or anything else that I bring to the table, it's really it is in that bundle. It's in that bundle of saying yes to yourself. And yes, it does embody the believing in yourself, but it also encompasses just seeing yourself for who you are and knowing that that is what is meant to be for you. And so, like I said, when I get inspired by thinking about that, the impact I would like to have is for people. I do focus on women, but I love men too. It's really all about people
Mhm.
to bring who they are to the world. And Marie Forleo, somebody I love and admire, has that motto, make only the difference that you can make. No one can make the difference except you. So
Mhm.
my mission is to spark people to take that truth and live that out, to the best of their abilities. And I just think then, in my idealistic way, the world is a better place when we all live that way. And we have more collective energy, we have more community, we have more possibilities, and much more greatness occurs.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, we're totally aligned. I run my life by divine appointment, which means that, you never know what impact you're ultimately going to have. And actually, as going through my own vision challenge, my clarity on why I and my life purpose is to change the world one dream at a time. And I do
Mm,
believe that you can change the world, because if I can help you achieve your vision, your dream of impact, and then you get inspired by that, and then you can help somebody. It's this, you know this effect, this ripple effect that goes
mhm.
through the world. So that's brilliant. Well, I love that. Possibilities, as I said, all things are possible. We always limit our own possibilities, and
Yep.
that's what I have to work through when I say, on the vision part of my my methodology and stuff, it's our biggest challenge is getting out of our zombie brain, which is already said, I already tried that, it doesn't work, and limiting it, or I don't have enough money, or I don't have enough time, or I don't have the connections, or I don't have whatever, right? So, well,
Mhm.
that's brilliant. Well, let's do this. We could go on and on and on, but we're going to have to get in, as hard as it is to say, we're going to have to get into what I call the land the plane segment. So when I come back, I'm going to talk about what you want to make sure that our audience takes away from this
Okay.
discussion. All right.
Excellent.
All right. All right, we are back, and Patty, this has been fabulous. I knew it would be, but I'm so feel so blessed and excited that we've got to do this, and I'm looking forward to the journey ahead on this BeeKonnected platform and all this stuff that is going to open up. I just have this huge expectation of so many things going forward. But as I said before we took the break, if we take away anything, what one or two things or whatever. I used to say what one thing, and then I found that warriors are overachievers. So I've had everything from one to five things with sub bullets. So, but if we take away anything from this podcast, what would you want us to take away?
I probably would go back to my theme of the mosaic.
Mhm.
What if you imagined and lived out your life as a mosaic, as a canvas of chips with gaps in between and beautiful broken pieces, and you cared about that mosaic that you were creating because it's you, and you loved that mosaic enough that you wanted to give it to other people because you love them too.
Mm.
And then what could happen in the world? So that's really my final, which is live your life imagining it as a mosaic where every piece matters, and so do you, and only you can bring that to the world.
Wow, that's beautiful. You,
Thank you.
I just really, that's a very, very succinct and very, very powerful, and I love it. Well, I know that we can find you, Patty, on the BeeKonnected platform
You
because
bet.
that's where we that's where we connected. And by the way, if you're not already on the platform, well, you probably are hearing this replay, or if you're live, you're hearing it. If you're in replay, there's ways to do that. It's beekonnected.com, and you can find Patty there. Um, but are there any other ways you'd like the audience, or actually, I'd recommend what is the next best way to reach out to you? Because a lot of people are listening to this audio podcast and working out or driving down the road. They're probably not going to write anything down, and we will post any links in the show notes. So, any other way that you'd like for us to reach out to you?
Yeah, so if you're on the BeeKonnected platform, we love it here, and we love to meet up with people, and everyone isn't here yet. So,
Mhm.
other than BeeKonnected, you can go to my website, which is easily named The Mosaic Effect, themosaic So that would be the next easiest place. And yeah, I would love to hear from you and have any kind of impact on your journey that I can, piece by piece. There we go. Thank you.
So that is the Mosaic
Yes,
Effect.com. Okay. So I'll
the
make sure we get that in the show notes so that you can click on that. And as always, there'll be links in to connect to BeeKonnected and the platform. And again, I can't tell you a better way other than going and meeting Patty in person to get to connect to somebody. It's such a brilliant platform and such a good way to begin lasting and global relationships. So love that. Well, it's time. It's that time, Patty. And so thank you for being willing to share with our audience here. And I'm so blessed. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
thank you, thank you, thank you back. Yes, dreams are changed one person at a time, and we connected for a reason. So thank you for this moment. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, we have to land the plane. So we'll hear the final
Okay.
segment of It's Not the Getting There by Ricky Jean Wright. And we'll be back next week with another amazing warrior and another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. Have a beautiful day.